browsing through the TV with my family. One of them said, "Oh, Paper Mask is on. Go and watch it." I said, I looked at it and I, well, it just disgusted me. It follows this story of a lowly hospital porter who steals the identity of a doctor and impersonates him. Oh, I'm so sick and tired of that. I really am. I mean, it's it's a little known film. Hardly anyone has heard of it today, and I can assure you, obscurity has never been more richly deserved. I hope the videos are not. Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity, Stop the New World Order. Welcome to Hapanwo TV. Well, this, ladies and gentlemen, Hapanwo TV viewers, is something that have I promised it before? I can't remember. It's something I'm sure I've mentioned. I think it was probably in my St. Theo's videos, or one of my St. Theo's videos. And that is my review of the TV series Porters. I'll put links in the description box, as per Hapanwo TV tradition, to where you can watch Porters yourself. Now, a lot of what you're going to hear, you've probably heard before. I am going to repeat myself probably. I'm sure I'll make a lot of the points and even refer to the same subjects that I have in my series of St. Theo's videos. Sorry about that, but I can't be bothered to watch the whole bloody lot of them again and find out what I'm going to say now I've said before. So if I repeat myself, tough shit, basically. Sorry about that. No doubt in my next St. Theo's videos I'll be saying something about this as well, because I definitely, at least series 2 of Porters I watched after St. Theo's Day. Firstly, I mean, this is a bit of an oversight on my part, because a lot of my ex-brother and sister Porters were saying, "Ben, you've got to watch this, you've got to watch this," and I looked at it and I thought, yeah, it's a TV sitcom about porters, hospital porters, I've got to see that. And so I said, put it on my to-do list, put it down here. Oh, something else comes up, better lower it down there. Oh, I just don't have time, you know. It's like there's a lot of things like that actually that fall under that category. Some people get a bit frustrated with me and say, "Ben, I keep reminding you about this. Have you done it yet?" And I said, "No, I just don't have enough." I'm trying to write a new book as well. Anyway, Porters, as I've said, Porters is the title of a TV sitcom. It's standard British situation comedy, half-hour slots on the Dave channel, primetime TV. You can watch it on Catch Up, which is on UK TV on demand, so you can watch it there. Adverts play at the beginning and various times through the show, but it's one of the wonderful things about today's TV is, you know, you don't have to have a television set to watch it. I actually do not have a television set. There's one in the house which doesn't belong to me. I don't know who it belongs to actually. I think it may even be the landlord's. Which Ahmed and Hassan, they watch it. I hardly ever do. The thing about television nowadays is 95% of it is total and utter crap, and the 5% or whatever it is worth watching always ends up online. So if I lived alone in a place on my own, I wouldn't even have one in my property. So this is a situation comedy, and it is. You find it on the Dave channel. I'll put details to the Internet Movie Database page that it has, because at this point I'm supposed to tell you who it's directed by, written by, etc, etc. It's created by a guy called Roy Sefton. I do remember that. Now he says in his interviews, he didn't actually say whether he's a porter, but he said he worked in the emergency department at a hospital. So I'd be interested to know more actually about what his duties were. I mean, normally when people say they work in a hospital, it's a euphemism for I was a porter. But I don't think, from watching this programme, I think if Roy Sefton actually had been a porter, was it Ray Sefton? I can't remember. If he had been a porter, I think he would have said so. So I'm guessing he wasn't a porter this time. Conversely to the usual way this kind of like putting in a thing like that operates. Oh, I got so frustrated with the brother porter once. We were sitting there and he was saying like, this is something I'm sure I've mentioned in St. Theo's video. He's saying, yeah, when I'm talking to people and they ask me what I do for a living, I tell them I work in a hospital. And they say, what do you do in the hospital? So I sort of help out. No, I don't tell them I'm porters. I don't tell them I'm a porter. Yeah, because it's the way they respond. They just look down. And I said, I flew off the handle at him. I don't often get angry, but I said, for God's sake, why? Why are you letting their pig ignorance and their snobbishness dictate how you live your life? You can guess the rest of what I said. And he got angry with me. I think we were in we were in a curry house, I think, and he got bloody angry with me, and he said, "Oh no, you don't understand, Ben." And I said, "It's not, it's people do this and they do that." I said, "Well, Sodom then, to hell with them. Stand up and say, I'm a porter. I say it clear, I say it loud. I'm a porter and I'm proud." Oh, hang on. So I'm just got to be back in a moment, ladies and gentlemen. Just to double check one of my notes. What was it? Yeah. It's a weird thing, isn't it? It's a weird thing because, like, if people say to me, people say what I do, I say I'm a hospital porter, and if they go, I know they're the kind of people I don't really want in my life, and even that may well be the majority of people, but it's one of the purposes, one of the reasons of what I do on Hapanwo TV is to try and change that, to try and educate people into out of what I consider a falsehood about these kinds of things. And I'm not going to go any further along that road, because then I definitely will be repeating myself. Can I suggest, actually, and I might, if I remember, I might even put a link in the description box to this, but my St. Theo's videos, my series of St. Theo's videos that I've been making since, I don't know, I've done about 8 or 9 of them now. Oh, God knows, I can't remember. I've been doing them for a long time. Please do check those out. Oh, it's frustrating. It really is when people do that. I mean, it doesn't bother me. I mean, I said this on my Rich Planet interview. I don't care. Like the people who go like that, or they go, their eyes glaze over, or they sort of look away and they say, "Yeah, right, okay." Excuse me, Ben, I'll come back to you later, or something like that. Those people don't. If they're civilians, it doesn't bother me. I don't care what civilians think of us. I don't care what other people think of hospital porters. I care about what hospital porters think of hospital porters. And when I hear my brother and sister porters starting to talk like that, that's what really lights my blue touch paper. It really does. So I don't want to go any further down that route, but that's just an example of what I'm talking about. Anyway, Dave Channel, the Dave Channel. It's called the Dave Channel. I don't know why it's called the Dave Channel, but anyway, it is. This series came out. It's 2017 was the first series. There was a 3-part pilot series, followed by a 5-part second series, which came out a few months ago. It's set in a hospital called St. Etheldreda's. It's an NHS hospital, and the opening titles are very good, actually. They're very well done. It's like you see a sort of aerial view of the hospital, and it sort of zooms in, and you see the ambulance bay, and if you think, oh, this is a casualty or Holby City, and I'm going to zoom in and see the exciting stuff you see on Dr. Kildare or ER and things like that. But it doesn't, and the camera angle moves to the side of the building, and you see like the staff entrance, and you see the tradesman's entrance, and then there's the usual things there. There's someone's put an office seat out there, and there's there's a ashtray and things like that. And that's where everyone goes and smokes, and you see like the porters there. That's just very perceptive, and you have this lovely Wurlitzer organ music in the background. It's really cool. And when I watched this, it's unforgivable, really, and I feel annoyed that I delayed so long in watching porters, because I was a hospital porter. It's funny, actually, because it's now 2019, which means it's 8 years, almost 8 years, since I was discharged from the NHS hospital portering service. That's actually a third of the period of time that I actually was a porter. I've now been an ex-hospital porter for a third of the amount of time that I was a hospital porter, which is quite something to think about. It seems a long time ago now. It's sort of fading into the past. As I said before, I don't miss it as much as I thought I would. But of course, as you know, I've kept an eye on all things hospital portering, including hospital porters in the media, how we portrayed in the media. And this is why I really should have paid more attention to the TV series Porters when it came out. So really, this review, and indeed the reviews on the HPWA blog, and I'll put a link to that if you ever read the HPWA blog, which I write, have come too late, really, and I'm really sorry about that. So how are hospital porters portrayed in the media? Well, leaving aside the subject in hand, the TV series I'm talking about, I looked through the history of how we are portrayed. The first reference really to hospital portraying in the media was in a 1961 American comedy film called The Disorderly Orderly, which starred Jerry Lewis, where he played this porter who was kind of a wannabe doctor, and that theme keeps coming up again and again and again. People who are porters and they go into portering and they think, oh, I'll come back to that actually, because I say this is a template. This is a common template character of how we're portrayed. Then you come forward to The Elephant Man. It's 1980, I believe. It's a film by David Lynch, an excellent film by David Lynch about Joseph Merrick, a grossly disfigured man who's living in the 1880s in London, and he's suffering from Proteus syndrome, it's called, which causes his parts of his body to become, his bones to grow wrong, and his skin to go wrong. And the film is a story of his life. It's based on a book written in 1941 by Ashley Montagu, ironically called The Elephant Man, A Study in Human Dignity, which is basically like a life story of this guy. He died when he was 21. He was very young. The thing about The Elephant Man was he's quite famous to this day, and he has many fans. There's several official fan sites, and Michael Jackson was a big Elephant Man fan. Possibly he felt some affinity because he knows how it feels to be disfigured. No one ever really saw Michael Jackson when there was makeup in the last few years of his life, for that reason. But he was a man who everyone assumed he was retarded. He turned up at this hospital in London, and he was grossly, as I said, he was grossly disfigured. There's some sort of official medical photographs of him, and you can see the terrible state of his body. And everyone assumed that he was mentally subnormal. He'd actually been earning a living in a freak show, which is one of the things that people used to do in those days. And he was like, everyone assumed he was retarded, but it turns out he was not. He had trouble speaking because of his throat was deformed, his mouth. He had deformities to his mouth, throat, etc. But when he actually spoke, and people helped him with speech therapy and things like that, it turns out he was a very clever, sensitive individual. He painted pictures, he made matchstick models and things like that, and some of them are on display. There's an Elephant Man museum, I believe, and some of his paintings are on display. He died at the age of 21, very young, but it was to be expected with his condition. Anyway, the reason I'm bringing it up is the film. The film by David Lynch stars Michael Elphick, who's now died, I believe. He plays a porter, and he's a really horrible individual. He was what he does is he teams up with a freak show owner to kidnap the Elephant Man. This is to add energy to the plot. This didn't happen in real life, but it adds energy to the plot of the film, to kidnap him and take him abroad. And so they do that, and then the heroes of the film have to basically track him down and save the Elephant Man, which they do in the end. But the whole thing is, the whole kidnap plot is organised by this man on the inside, who's this horrible porter played by Michael Elphick. So then the next, you have to come forward now to the TV show Casualty and Holby City. Now there's many portrayals of porters in those two series. There's one with Simon Day is in it in one episode, plays a porter who won the lottery. But the principal character I'm going to dwell on is someone called Jimmy Powell. Jimmy Powell is a porter who was the first major character in Casualty who was a porter, and he was. I was interested at the time because he starred in the series when I was first getting into hospital portering myself. I'd first joined myself. And he's played by Robson Green, who was a good actor actually. And Robson Green went on to play some really good characters actually. He was in a TV series called Soldier, which I think was the next thing he did, which was actually pretty good. But as this porter in Casualty, he was kind of like, again, it's this standard thing. He's this guy who goes, "Oh, I wish I wasn't only a porter. I wish I wasn't only a porter. I wish I was a nurse. I wish I was a nurse. I would be a nurse, but I haven't got the bus fare up here to do it." And it's like this. And I consider that grossly patronising. I really do. I don't consider myself an unintelligent person. I didn't join hospital portering because I would have been a doctor or a nurse, but if I'd had the brains or the drive or the ambition to do it, I didn't do it. I wasn't one of these people who said, well, I don't have those things, so therefore I'm going to suffice with being a hospital porter as a second best thing. I'll never be a doctor or nurse or doctor, and I want to, but I can't, because, like I said, I don't have I haven't got what it takes. I don't have the intelligence. I don't have that sense of purpose to do it. I'm not ambitious enough. So I'm going to just make do with being a porter. That's not me. That's not the motivation that brought me into hospital portering. I chose to become a hospital porter because I wanted to be a hospital porter, because it is one of the most important jobs in the entire world. You're an essential member of a life-saving team. You're doing as I said, you're doing something essential. There is no higher calling, in my view. That is why I chose to become a porter, and I hate seeing ourselves being portrayed like this. So that's 3 examples of hospital porters in the media. Where are we? Let's tot it up on the score sheet, sir, shall we? Patronising, condescending portrayals of frustrated, inferior people. 2, evil monster who wants to kidnap a disfigured man from a hospital. 1, will things get any better? Well, they don't. They get much, much worse. There's a film that came out in, I think, 1991 or 2, called Paper Mask, that stars Paul McGann. It's about a hospital porter in an NHS hospital who steals the identity of a doctor, and he basically fakes his way as a doctor. As a doctor. I've got the book of it somewhere. Where's the book? I don't know. I've got the book somewhere. I'm going to read when I've got enough sick bags in the house. I won't dwell on this too long, because if I don't, I'll be here all day and I will be throwing up. It's not only is it the points I just made about casualty and the disorderly orderly, this portrayal of hospital porters, that counts tenfold. It's distilled, it's magnified in Paper Mask. I will put a link in the description box to all these references, actually. I have a list of them from the HPWA blog. And not only that, I mean, it's horrific to watch. Also, the main character, Paul McGann's character, this porter who fakes it as a doctor, steals his identity. When he dies, this doctor dies, and this porter steals his identity. Not only that, but he's a horrible person. He's an anti-hero. He's the central character of the film, but he's nasty. He's obviously a liar. He's very deceitful. He's also very cowardly. He's very selfish. He cares. The only emotions he feels are fear, and that fear is when his own wretched hide is threatened with exposure. I won't say any more on that, because I will literally go on a rant, and it just upsets me. It just upsets me, these things. So really, the only positive portrayal of hospital porters in the media at all was my own novel Evans Land, which is my first novel, which unfortunately is not available. I don't even have a copy with me, I don't think. It's out of print. It's a book that came out in 2002. I was very proud of it at the time. I look back on it and I don't think it was all that good. But I thought it was great at the time. And it's obviously it portrays, because it's by me and I was a porter at the time, it portrays hospital porters respectfully. I'm hoping I'm going to put it up online and see if I can get it scanned in and put up online, because I don't have any digital copies of it. I'll see if I can get it scanned in and put it online like I did with Rockall. So we come forward to a new portrayal of hospital porters. It's the TV series Porters. So what's that like? I'm running out of dragon juice. Hang on. Well, as it says, it's set in an NHS hospital. and it's a situation comedy. So I watched the first 3 episodes on the pilot series, and then I went to watch the second series when it came out, and well, it is funny. Yeah, the sense of humour is very dark, and there's some rather what you might call inappropriate jokes involving death and blood and things like that, sperm donations. Now, one thing you've got to realise is that people who work in healthcare tend to have a very ghoulish sense of humour, and it's very easy to condemn and say, "Oh, that's horrible. How can you make jokes about that?" I mean, it's like I've said this before on St. Theo's, the T.F. Bundy. If you look at a patient's nose, and you might see it in ITU, and it says T.F. Someone's written T.F. Bundy at the bottom. T.F. Bundy is an acronym, and the doctors sometimes write it on the illest patients in intensive care. It stands for totally fucked, but unfortunately not dead yet. And you might think that's horrible. That's mean. That's how can you write T.F. Bundy? Well, what you've got to realise is that no doctor's going to go up to a patient's relatives and say, "Sorry, your old grandmother's T.F. Bundy." They're not going to say that. It's a joke which they share amongst themselves, and you might think it's cruel, it's heartless, and it's spiteful to make jokes about a person's misery, illness, pain, and death. But if they didn't do it, they couldn't do the job. And what applies to them applies for other healthcare professionals too, nurses and porters. It's a survival mechanism. It's that simple. And I see that in this TV series. It is some of the jokes. Some of you who are easily offended might not like porters because you'll find it a little bit too like that. You see what I mean? So the characters are quite interesting. I mean, one of the characters is one of these wannabe doctors. So he comes in. He's this young chap called Simon, overly enthusiastic, a kind of a middle-class youth who he's trying to get into medical school. He's got all his qualifications at school, but he's just so scatterbrained, and he's a bit mentally loose, so to speak, and he's not very focused. So he hasn't succeeded yet. So he's decided to get in as a hospital porter and work his way up, which you can't do actually. If you are actually planning to go to medical school, and being a porter won't actually, it's not something you put on your application and say, "Well, I was a hospital porter." That actually is neither here nor there. It's irrelevant. It might help you. It won't. I mean, it won't help you. It won't. If you say you were a hospital porter and you're applying for medical school, indeed, I had some medical students who did work as porters temporarily, or those applying for medical school. It won't stop you, it won't hamper your application, but it won't help it either. It'll be completely irrelevant. So he's this sort of like smiley, rather overly enthusiastic, friendly chap, rather fuzzy hair, and a bit naive. And it's quite funny because a lot of it's told through his eyes. A lot of the story is told through his eyes. He's kind of like almost the narrative character, and he has what's sometimes known as night shift dreams. He has these visions, and part of the story is told through his mental landscape. Now it's very good because in the second series, one of the characters who was in the first series is absent from the second series, yet he returns in these night shift dreams of Simon. His name's Simon Porter, interestingly. He's Porter Simon Porter. But someone actually puts semen on puts the word semen, and they write it on, and they put a sticky label on his. And so they keep calling him Seaman for a while. It's part of the humour, and it's part of the banter that you often get, not just within the health service, but within the hospital portering milieu itself. Now, the person who trains up is a female porter, a young black woman, a sort of chubby sort of black woman with this hair, this amazing hair, which sort of comes up and goes out like that. I'm sure it's a wig. It has a little pink bow on it, It's her name's Frankie, and her actress is called Susan Wokoma, and she's actually starred in a couple of. She's been one of these. They do like these classic Elizabethan dramas, and they have to bring in the token black woman where she wouldn't otherwise be. I mean, I talked about that before, about how the BBC often do this. But she was in those roles a couple of times, I think. So she was in a couple of movies and a couple of TV dramas like that. But now she's playing Frankie, this young female porter, and she's really funny actually because she's Firstly, women in portering. There are women in portering. I mean, it's not unrealistic to have a woman as a porter. Certainly not unrealistic to have someone from an ethnic minorities. In fact, in a lot of portering departments, native white people are actually a minority. Although that's never been a problem. That's never something that's made me feel uncomfortable. Actually, I've never felt, because of the camaraderie of hospital portering. Things such as racism. I can't think of any example of racism actually, ever, in my 23 years. Either by the white people towards the ethnic minorities, or what is sometimes called reverse racism, which it doesn't exist. It's like unicorns and that sort of thing. In other words, where there'd be racism towards the white people. And of course, whether you think that word should be applied or not, I think it should be. I don't think it should be regarded as different to the other kinds of racism. That also was, occasionally someone would say, "Oh, a white boy," or something like that to me. There was this senior porter in the women's centre who says, "It's typical of a white boy," you know. But it wasn't said with any malice. You know, I didn't detect it. It was almost like it was just kind of departmental banter. You know, it's a shift joke. You know, it was always Snow White or something. You know, it's there's nothing. I mean, I don't think you've got any reason to be offended. We're in an environment where it's mostly men, and guys do take the mickey out of each other. That's just what we're like. And as I said, there are women in portrait. It's a minority though. There's only there was only one or two actually. It's probably the highest. There was 4 or 5. There was a crew in the JR of almost 100 porters. Our staffing levels went between about 92 and at the lowest they were about 79, and they went up to about 92 at some point within the crew. You maybe get the maximum of 5 women. Usually it was less. Sometimes it's just 1 or 2. When I started, there were just 2 women. It's not popular. It is a man's job kind of thing, but this doesn't mean that women can't do it. There's some very good women actually. One of my shift partners in the emergency department was a woman, and her name was Sandy, and we got on very well. We worked together closely for about 2 years, and she was very good, better than some of the blokes I've served alongside. And of course the feminists don't mind about that. In fact, it was a male. It's dominated by men. But the feminists don't mind, because hospital portering is a dirty, unglamorous, low-paid job. So they're quite happy for the blokes to do those, aren't they? You notice that about feminists. You know. So Frankie's quite amazing, because she's this porter who basically is involved in all kinds of petty criminal activities. I mean, she sees the whole hospital and her role in it as basically a pasture for black market larceny. And she does all kinds of things. I mean, she sells outdated Viagra to Chinese businessmen, and then she progresses to stealing perfume from patients who are dying. And again, you think that's horrible, but it's a joke. It's part of the humour. There's a lot of death jokes in porters. Now, the third character is one of the most remarkable of all. Hang on a minute. It's just one moment, ladies and gentlemen. He's a guy. His name is Tillman, Matthias Tillman. He's just referred to as Tillman. And he's a German man, an old man played by Rutger Hauer, who died sadly. Tillman is really quite remarkable, because when I looked at him, I thought it was amazing they got this guy. Rutger Hauer is actually best known for movies. He's a big screen actor. He has been since the late 60s. And it's odd to see him in a British TV sitcom. But he translates very well into the small screen actually, and he does this really, really remarkably. This is definitely the best thing about porters, it really is. Tillman is this really eccentric individual, and as I was watching him, I realised, as I was watching the TV series, I realised something. He's me. Tillman is me. And I don't mean he is me now. I mean Tillman is me in a parallel universe where I wasn't kicked out of hospital portering. He's me in about 30 years' time if I'd stayed as a porter. Because if I hadn't left if I hadn't been sacked, right, I don't think I'd have willingly left. I really don't think I ever would have done. I think I'd have, because you think about what I actually went through, especially in the last half of my service. If I can endure that, I can endure just about anything. So I don't think I'd have left willingly. I think I would have had to have been to get me out of portering. I'd have had to have been sacked in some way. So if I hadn't been, I'd have ended up being like the rest of my life there probably. And Tillman is me. Tillman is this crazy old man that I would have become if I hadn't been kicked out. He plays golf all the time. He wears this sort of like straw hat and he plays golf. But he's really into karma and spirituality and things like that, and he meditates. And he also has this habit of kidnapping patients he thinks need his particular kind of rough therapy. And what he does is he ties them to the wheelchair and he forces them to watch like police stop videos where he plays like rap music through earphones. And he says, "I'm trying to help you. You may not realise this, but you will thank me one day," and things like this. It's just so funny. I say it's very well written. It's got a great script. And Tillman is a fantastic character. And Rutger Hauer is a great actor. And of course he died, didn't he? So, now the sad thing is in season 2, Tillman's not in it. Well, he appears. He's brought back. Obviously, when they were in production, I saw in the news that where they were reshooting Porters, and they weren't sure whether they could get Rutger Hauer in again. And he did come back, but he didn't come back as a full character. Just got to get some more dragon juice. Tillman returned, but he returned in Simon's Night Shift Dreams. He appears in Simon's Night Shift Dreams, and at one point Simon does this astral travelling thing, because in the story what happens is Tillman has actually, since he's been uprooted and he's been moved to he's gone to live with the Dalai Lama in Nepal and study Buddhism and meditation and things like that. He's also a golfer. At one point he tries his shock therapy on Simon. He ties Simon to a CT scan table and shows him pictures of himself playing golf when he was young. They're saying, and there's like a TV. He misses the hole and it ruins his entire life. And he's sort of saying, "You must understand, Simon, that sometimes when shit happens, it's not really shit," and things like this. It's so funny. I mean, as I said, the script is brilliant. It's very well written. Sometimes, in a sense, sometimes the dialogue is too speedy, and you got to watch the one-liners delivered like machine gun bullets, and you can't always keep up with them. So that's kind of like, that's one I'll try. Just turn this over now, and that's one of the. I'm not saying that's a criticism. Maybe you should. Maybe you shouldn't. They should be sort of, what's the word? Complex. It should be complex, and it should be. It's a thing. It's for thinking people who can think. Why should it be like simplistic and dumbed down like so much of the media is now? So that's not a criticism when I say sometimes it's too fast to follow. One of the things I should bring up is Simon. There's lots of jokes, and indeed this comes up many times. It's told in sometimes a serious and grim form. It comes up in Paper Mask, and that is like when you're a hospital porter, you're working basically you're serving in a like I say, a male-dominated profession, to use the derogatory language of the feminists. But you're working alongside a lot of women as well, because most nurses are women, a lot of doctors are women. So you're encountering a lot of women, and it's sometimes a bit of a frustrating situation, because you're dealing with women who have essentially a lot of what you call as men with high conventional status, like doctors, who really they can have their pick of them. So if there's an attractive young nurse, she'll go look for a nice doctor. But if you're a porter and you find yourself admiring one of these women, it can be extraordinarily frustrating, because all of this kind of conventional hierarchy things, like Stephen Molyneux talks about sexual market value and things like that, you can find yourself in this enormously frustrating situation. And that is actually lampooned really perceptively in Porters. I would say painfully perceptively, because it brings up some rather hard memories that I have, because I have been in this situation. I was very keen on this nurse called Vicky for many years, very keen indeed. And well, she never really showed any interest in me, and I was very sad about that. And I'm not saying it was because I was just a porter. I don't think she was the kind of woman who would look down her nose at porters and things like that. It just didn't work out. But I had a crush on her terribly for a long time, and in a sense, that's the source of one of the jokes in Porters, which is because Simon he's this almost unstoppable suitor for this young nurse called Lucy, who's this young nurse, someone I don't particularly fancy, but he does. He's absolutely besotted with her. But she, of course, is she's in love with this guy called Dr. Mackenzie, who's like a consultant emergency department officer who's also with the helimed service, so he flies in the helicopters and things like that. He flies in the air ambulances. And so Tillman is funny because Simon's going like that, and he's like, he's biting his nails, and he's watching Lucy and Dr. Mackenzie flirting, and Tillman goes up to him and he puts his arm around him, like, you know, and look, it's in this kind of stuff, look, old porter to young porter kind of thing. Simon, she belongs to the doctors. And it's nice to be able to laugh about it, actually, because it's actually, if you're in this situation, you're a porter and you're actually in this situation, it's actually therapy. It really is. It is healing to be able to make a joke about something. I've always found this. I've always found laughter is a great medicine. And to be able to laugh about this is wonderful. And so I really appreciate that kind of humour. It's funny because Tillman is like watching Simon flirt with Lucy. He's with Frankie, and they're both watching Simon flirt with Lucy through the doors of the ward at the nurse's station. And Tillman, he says he mentions this very long compound word, this German, because he says there's a German word for this, and he mentions it. German often has long sort of amalgamations of words, compound words, etc. A lot of like, and he says, it's a German word which means a young man who is trying too hard to impress a female colleague on his first day in a job that he is unlikely to keep. Oh, it made me laugh so much. Now, Tillman was out of it in series 2, but he comes back in Simon's night shift dreams several times. In fact, in about 3 of the 5 episodes, he is credited. And even if he appears only briefly, he's really just sort of, in a sense, Simon sort of channels his inner Tillman to counsel him and advise him, and it's very well done. So I'm really glad that they at least brought Rutger Hauer back for a short while, and of course then he died. Rutger Hauer, of course, great actor, fantastic actor, and of course he died, and you saw all the videos, the Tears in Rain scene from Blade Runner, that incredible climactic scene in Blade Runner, brilliant film by Ridley Scott. This sort of sci-fi film noir that he was in. He plays this replicant, Nexus 6 replicant, this sort of biological robot. I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. I'm not going to quote it all. This is an incredible scene. But he has that way with words, and he has that voice, and that comes out in Porters. Because he died. He was born in 1944. He starred in his first movie in 1968, and he died 2019. And his second last role was appearing as Tillman in Porters. And he left behind. He was married to Inika, his wife. He was married to her for over 50 years. That's very sad. But he was quite old. He was 70 something, and we can work it out. 1944 to 2019 is I don't know, 70 whatever. He was old, and what can I say? I feel as if I have lost a brother porter. Even though he was only acting, I feel as if I've lost a brother porter. So I salute you, Rutger Hauer. Tillman, on eternal night shift, brother porter. Now, there's several other characters I should bring out. Now, one of them is, he comes in essentially in the series 2. He's not in series 1, but he comes in series 2 to replace Tillman. And he's called Anthony Delamare. Now, it's very interesting because Delamare is an unusual name. It's like a French-style name. And I knew a real porter whose surname was Delamare. He was one of the first guys I served with in the maternity unit when I first started out. And he's a real porter. And I wonder if that's a coincidence. But Anthony Delamare, now he's another very perceptive character because he's a consummate blagger. And this is, I mean, surely it's not just portering, but there are so many porters like this that we sort of know them. It's almost like the serial relievers, you know, the list of classic portering characters. Now the blagger is one of them. Now he's a guy, and we to quote how he talks about this guy called Tom, who was a theatre porter. We say, look, you name a place, he's been there. Name an activity, he's done it. And Anthony Delamare is one of these people. He comes in, he talks about how he was like he was an astronaut on the International Space Station after he quit the SAS. Then he came down and was recruited by MI6, licensed to kill. You know, he was serving at a private hospital when he became a porter, and he dated lots of famous women. You know, he dated what's her name, Kylie Minogue and things like that. And he's one of these people. Of course, it's all bullshit. It's all completely made up. And I think deep down, he knows that the people he's saying this to know that it's bullshit. And you go into the social club after a shift, and you meet the porters. Various porters come off duty. They will all tell you stories like this about themselves, and they know it's complete crap. It's palpable crap. Some of the things I said, the number of guys who were vigilantes, the number of guys who were deep sea divers, the number of guys who were treasure hunters. I mean, you name it, they did it. And surely they must realise that people don't believe them. But again, they don't really care. I didn't actually. I didn't make up stories about myself. Maybe I should have done. There's some really great. There's another great character, like a minor character or supporting character, someone called Jane Bison. Now she's an NHS administrator who wears an eye patch, and she can't judge distances because she's only got one eye, so she can't see in stereoscopically, so she's always making mistakes that way. She's also at one point, like she's quite mean. I mean, again, it's very perceptive. It's very, very, very realistic the way these characters are about. Like she's like all NHS managers. You have to be this way if you're an NHS manager. She doesn't give a damn about the actual quality of service provided. All she cares about is how it looks. So she goes absolutely berserk when this one of the patients is like. There's these ham and cheese, these two guys who do YouTube videos, and they're typical of like overrated internet stars. And she like goes, look, is everything all right? She's absolutely crazy when these people visit because they're big celebrities. But she has her eye patch, and if she wants to like get really angry with someone, she lifts her eye patch at one point with Simon, and he goes. So it's like when Darth Vader takes off his mask, you know. Oh, so she's again a very good character, utterly despicable person. But then that's what they're like. If you want to get into healthcare admin, unfortunately most of the people in healthcare admin are like that. They are cowardly, deceitful. All they care about, as I say, is how things look. They don't give a damn about... They're happy to they can let half the patients die of MRSA. They don't care. As long as it looks good, as long as you walk into the entrance and it looks like some big hotel, that's all that matters. And they spend hundreds of thousands of pounds on polishing over the rust in the NHS. Shifting the deck chairs on the Titanic, and all they care about is their own bloody lining their own bloody pockets. You think I might be unfair if you're an NHS manager? Well, ask yourself this: did you get into the job you're in and reach the position you did through the goodness of your heart? Just look at yourself and ask yourself how you rose so quickly within this institution when the institution is so corrupt, and is it designed to spit out people who don't pull along? I mean, look what they did to Sarah Keatage, who've watched my latest St. Theo's video. The nurse who prayed and was sacked for praying. There's some great storylines, actually. For example, Frankie, along with her other forms of crookedness, and she does something quite funny. I mean, like I say, she's a lovable rogue, Frankie. She's not like she's not into anything immoral. You know, she's just like, if you call nicking perfume from dying patients not moral, again, it's a joke, you know. But she runs like a boxing tournament for women in the basement, and Dr. Bartholomew, another of the minor characters, has this big rivalry with Lucy, who's this nurse that Simon likes, and they always get looking at each other like that, and they get in the ring and they half kill each other. You know, it's like kicking her. It's not just because it's illegal boxing. You know, it's not Queensberry rules. They kick and they bite and they scratch and everything like that. It's great. A serial killer comes into the hospital. What it is, it has Halloween night shift, and all kinds of funny things happen in the mortuary. But then this serial killer comes in, and he kidnaps Frankie, and that's how the drill goes live. There's a robot surgeon, which it breaks down. Simon pours gets it wet, and it breaks down. So he pours rice over it, because you all know if your mobile phone gets wet, they will say put it in a packet of rice and it dries off quickly. But that makes it even worse. There's these security guards. There's this female security guard, this Irish woman who's big and brutish, and she has loads of tasers all over her. She opens up her stab vest, and there's tasers in holsters all over it. There's a scene where, again, this is perceptive. Simon rough sleeps in the hospital. Now, this is something all of us have done. Late night at the social club, you missed the last bus, your early shift the next day. What can you do? By the time you've got home, it'll be time to come back again. So, give us the key to the linen store. Can you give us the key to the linen store? You say to the senior porter, and he says, I never gave you this, all right, Ben? Don't tell anyone. I've slept in the linen store. I've slept under stairwells. I slept on old mattresses in the service tunnels. You just get your head down for a couple of hours, set your alarm on your mobile phone, and you're up for your early shift. We've all done it. It's not allowed, but we've all done it. So that's kind of that is kind of what I think of porters. So I don't really have like a denouement for this particular video. I would say it is. 1 second. It is maybe I could say it's the second example in the history of the portrayal of hospital porters in the media where we are portrayed respectfully. I was a bit dubious when I watched my first episode. I thought it was taking the piss a bit, but it does portray us respectfully. It is obviously made by people. I say the writer did some role in the hospital, who know what they're talking about. There's many little anecdotal elements to this series that can see that it's been made by people who know what they're talking about. They didn't ask me, which is odd because, as I said in my previous Syntheos, one of my previous Syntheos videos, I am a consultant to Hollywood on portraying matters. This film director did this. He phoned me up. We had an hour-long conversation on Skype, and I talked him through a few things. I explained that on one of my previous Syntheos videos. But I am an official consultant to the movie industry on hospital portraying matters. I'll have my name will be in the credit when the movie comes out. So these are people who know what they're doing, who have actually worked. They've worked with people who know what they're talking about, and they haven't contacted me personally, but probably there are maybe one, maybe two other people in the world who know as much about hospital portraying as I do. Not many, but maybe one or two. They've obviously contacted them. I was probably third choice for them. But hopefully it'll have that effect. I think people will watch it and they won't think, hospital porters, have you ever thought about doing something better with your life? Why are you wasting your life? They won't say that now watching that series. And you see, I love that fact. I love that actually happens. One of the happiest things that I ever encounter is when people do come up to me. Usually it's on internet now, not in real life. But they say, hey Ben, I'm a hospital porter too. And I've watched your videos, and I'll tell you what, it's really, really helped me. It's really, really made me feel better about myself. I really appreciate what you're doing. When people do that, it's one of the most happiest moments of my life when people do that. It really is. I know I can't reach everyone. I know I can't make everyone understand. I know I can't convince everyone. I know that people will hate me for what I've said. And indeed they do. And I've talked about that in my Syntheos videos. If I improve the life of just one porter in one hospital with what I do on Hapanwo TV, then that makes me happy. It really does. And I think this TV series has something contributes to that. I think it really does. So top marks for porters. I hope there'll be more. Tillman is now. He's now on eternal night shift. Like I said, he shuffled off this mortal hospital street. and he can't be replaced. They won't bring him back with another actor, I don't think, but they may replace him with there may be other interesting characters in the series. I hope so, but I do hope there is a series 3, and I will review it when it is. So thank you all of you, hospital porters and civilians alike. Thank you all for watching. Hospital porters, pride and dignity, stop the New World Order. So we're drifting from pub to pub. We go in, meet these girls, and they say, what do you do for a living? And Steve grabs me, he takes me to one side, and he whispers fiercely in my ear, for God's sake, don't tell them we're porters. And so when the women approach me and ask me what I do for a living, I say I'm a hospital porter. And Steve goes, ugh! He sees teeth gritting. The conversation continues for a while, and then the girls say goodbye. They leave the pub, and Steve was furious with me. He said, why did you do that, Ben? What the hell were you thinking of, telling those girls we were porters? Do you think I want women like them to know I'm only a hospital porter? And I said, Steve, there are pimps and drug dealers who are not ashamed to declare publicly what they do for a living. We provide an essential service. We're doing one of the most important jobs in the entire